Anthony Murphy is staying with us on Late Lunch. We're going to have a chat about his new book, as he mentioned there, Newgrange, a little while ago, and he has a new book coming out called Newgrange, Monument to Immortality, and we're going to talk further right after these. Now, Anthony, you're into astronomy, as you said, archaeology, mythology, and of course he's a member of the brass band as well. He can knock out a tune or two.
Don't blow a trumpet there now.
Never one to blow his own, as they say. Island of the Setting Sun, the book you produced a few years back with Richard Moore, an absolutely fascinating book, beautiful prints and paintings associated with. That was a big project.
It was incredible, yeah. It was a major journey. It was 8 years of research and writing, yeah.
And this new one, Newgrange, Monument to Immortality. Now, I'm sure the first thing that strikes my mind is Newgrange. There's been an awful lot written about Newgrange and that in the past. What's this one? What's this book bringing?
It's a very competitive marketplace, if you were to put it that way. Well, I suppose when we looked, when we explored the Boyne Valley, I mean, Island of the Setting Sun was very big in its scope. We dealt with everything from the estuary down as far as the Hill of Tara and even Lough Crew. And Newgrange was squashed into 2 chapters, and really I felt that there was another project there that it just, you know, Newgrange is a national monument. It's a famous national monument. There's a lot of mythology attached to it. There's 250,000 people go there every year. There's 30 or 40,000 people try to get in there on the solstice, in the solstice lottery. 31,000 I think last year. So there's an incredible interest in it, especially obviously since the excavations and the opening of the Brunabonia Centre. So this is essentially, I mean, it's very, I suppose, in some ways it's philosophical, in some ways it's spiritual, in some ways it's scientific as well, and cosmic. This is an exploration of, the Newgrange beyond archaeology, basically. I think it's much more than a tomb. It's been labelled, that's a kind of a very simplified description of what it does. Astronomically, it's much more complex than the winter solstice sun, even though that's trumpeted as a major achievement of the ancient farming community that built it, that they were able to align it towards winter solstice sunrise. But there's so much else that was happening in the sky in ancient times, and there's so much about Newgrange that I suppose the archaeologists haven't seen, because they're not necessarily trained in the discipline of astronomy, basically. So what I've done is I've taken a fairly wide sweeping look at it. I've examined the archaeology, I've examined the time it was built, the sort of labour that would have went into it, the sort of community that might have built it, the sort of lives that they might have led, because of course they were very fragile times, and simple stuff like if you broke a leg while you were working on it, you probably died. It's that simple. Nowadays we call an ambulance, we go to hospital, we get fixed up, we have an operation. Very, very different times. I'll tell you one thing that I'm doing with Newgrange, the Newgrange book, is I'm examining, generally speaking, why we have such a big interest in Newgrange, and why the growth of interest in ancient monuments and ancient mythology and ancient spirituality has grown so much in the last couple of decades. Ironically, that's coincided with a time of serious crisis in this country, when our financial and economic, our political and religious institutions are all in crisis. And it just so happens that I think that a lot of people are turning to something that's ancient, that's, they can make a connection with, that's deeply rooted, that is sacred, that, perhaps they feel they can get some answers from. I mean, it's no coincidence that as the numbers fall away from the traditional church, the numbers of people who are travelling to these places are increasing all the time. And if you go up to the Hill of Tara on any weekend, it's packed up there. There's just, people gravitate towards it. Yes, for the open space and the natural beauty of the place, that's one thing, but I think also for the energy of the place. I speak about energy in an ethereal sort of sense, that there's an energy at Newgrange. It's a very positive energy. It's a very ancient energy. It's an ancestral energy. We're connecting with ancestors, and that makes us feel good, and it makes us feel that we've some place in the world. A lot of people who come to Newgrange, have profound experiences there, and really feel a sense of connection with something that's, I suppose archaeologists would consider to be long gone and long dead, but here it is 5,000 years later, still working, still doing what it was designed to do all those moons ago.
I'm doing a great job for the Northeast, as you say, and bringing so many people to the area as well.
Yeah. And I see finally we're going to get visitors from Newgrange coming into Drogheda as well. I saw that during the past week.
Yeah, and that's a big boon for the local economy. But you're bringing something, that's what I'm getting at. You're bringing something new, and it's something definitely different in the way you've examined the subject matter here.
I've kind of kept one foot in the science and one foot in the cosmic, the spirituality side of it. And I've tried to balance the two. So, I think, if you were to just talk about the archaeology and the history of exploration of Newgrange, that's been done, and it's been done many times over. There's also, there's plenty of stuff about, Celtic spirituality in ancient Ireland that has been done, but I don't think there's anything that just necessarily captures the whole essence of the place, no matter whether you're an archaeologist or an astronomer or a mathematician, or, you're a spiritual person, or, you feel some sort of sense of energy at these places. A lot of people feel very, very positive energy at these places. It's incredible. And there's no scientific evidence that there is any sort of, energy there other than what we can measure, what we know to be naturally inherent in the landscape. But people come away and they feel better anyway. So, and at this time, with the way the world is and with the way Ireland is, I think we need something.
And anything that does that is to be welcomed, and that people get that feeling from it.
Yeah, in some sense, there's a thing called Newmanism, or Newman seeking, which is, defined as people getting some sense of great satisfaction and some sense of awe from visiting an ancient site. And they maybe create something in their own mind that isn't there. There is a sense of that, of course. But I think more than that, it takes us back to before all our trouble started in the world, to a time when we had only come out of the forests of the Mesolithic, when we were hunter-gatherers, when we spent all of our time as human beings hunting and fishing and foraging for food. In the Neolithic, we started farming, we started planting crops and keeping cattle. We had a food supply that enabled us the time to go and do other stuff, and that we expressed ourselves as humans. Now I say we, that's the proverbial we, obviously. They expressed themselves in the most magnificent and eternal fashion. They came out of the forest and they said, look, this is our place in the world, this is who we are, this is what we believe in. There's an intense spirituality attached to Newgrange and the monuments of the Boyne. These people are incredibly cosmic meaning that they saw the interconnectivity of everything, the sky and the ground, the rhythm of the sun and the moon, and how that affected life on the earth. They considered themselves to be part of a unified system, and of course we've gone away from that. That started in the Bronze Age, by the way, when we started making fancy jewellery and weapons to stab each other with. We started fighting over territory, that's when the troubles really began, and we've been going downhill steadily ever since.
And we're just looking for someone to blame it on, and I'm sure, don't tell the government that, they'll be back, it's the Bronze Age fault, all the mess that we're in at this stage, and cling to anything. But obviously this didn't happen overnight. It just coincides that this book is ready to go literally till just hours before you joined us here.
Yeah, actually I finished the first draft this morning. Finished the last chapter.
Good.
And well, to be honest with you, Jerry, if you were to ask me what the ideal career was, it would be a full-time author. I'd love to make a living from writing. There's a few books in my head even now. Actually, ironically, when I went to the Liffey Press in January, I said to my publisher, David Givens, I said, look, I have a few projects that I'm thinking about. And he said, look, bring them along and we'll have a look. And sure, he looked at the first one and he was, not dismissive now, don't get me wrong, just not right for us. And looked at the second and said, no, that's, you'd have to go in a different direction with that. And I was getting really sort of nervous and anxious. And then he saw the Newgrange one. And all I didn't have a proper proposal. All I had was a chapter that I'd written, the first chapter of the book. And as soon as he saw the title, his eyes lit up. And within reading a few lines of it, he said, oh, I'm very excited about this. And he said to me, come back to me with a proper proposal, which I did. I put a proposal together. And he said, yeah, no problem, we'll go with that. I think, part of the reason for that is there's a natural fascination with Newgrange, as we said. I suppose it's probably easier to market something that has Newgrange on the cover of it. But in addition to all that, the current spiritual crisis that we're in, people are looking for something anyway.
So how long has this writing taken?
I was working on it mostly in my spare time while I was still working in the newspaper industry since January. So I've just literally finished it this morning, and I'll spend the next week or so going back over just make sure.
When is publication due?
October sometime. So we expect there'll be a launch locally somewhere in Drogheda, probably maybe towards the end of October, maybe early November.
And then beyond that, those other projects, you'll visit the appropriate houses with those and see if there's an uptake there in them?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just a matter of developing something that I think will work as a project. And then I think if you have like Island of the Setting Sun obviously was a fairly major work. It's a good feather to have in the cap when you're approaching publishers with new ideas. You can show them the book and say, look, this is the first one.
That's there already.
And now hopefully I'll have 2 under
number
my belt.
2. So it gets easier as you move along. One last thing before you leave us. I did see a comment at some stage yesterday, and we're going to be talking about Curiosity. The craft has landed on Mars. You talked about out there to me.
It's incredible.
The last few minutes.
Well, this is one of the things I touch on in the book, actually, is how, as humans, what we've done with technology, we've gone to distant planets, we've sent back pictures from the surface of different planets. We're looking for life in the universe, which I believe to be abundant in the universe, not necessarily on Mars, but Curiosity is incredible. The amount of technology that went into it, and the amount of things that could go wrong in the 7 minutes of descent from, into the atmosphere of Mars down to landing. I mean, it's an incredible achievement for humankind. But there's another side to Curiosity, and that is we've invested all this time and money and all this technology to do these wonderful things, and yet the planet is in chaos here. You know what I mean? We haven't created a sustainable way of life. We're exhausting all our resources in this in this life that we've created for ourselves here. There's an awful lot of turbulence in the world, an awful lot of strife, difficulty, wars, conflicts, etc., etc. And yet we're doing all this wonderful stuff. Isn't it a shame that we couldn't apply ourselves equally to all things, make things better here first? I think ultimately we're looking to get off this planet to hop onto the next one and exhaust all its resources in a way. But hats off to the team. I mean, I watched the coverage and the excitement when they found out it had landed safely, because they knew the amount, the tiniest thing went wrong with pyrotechnics on that, and that whole mission was, you wouldn't believe the amount of Martian missions that have ended in failure. There's a number of spacecraft which are lying in smithereens on the surface of Mars as we speak, which are failed missions because something went wrong in the last stages.
And this thing came down like a feather. We're up against the clock, 3 o'clock news. Anthony Murphy, it's been a pleasure. I wish you the very best for your future. Thanks for joining us on the show today. And one thing, if we do find that planet, make sure there's no Anglo-Irish bank ever created on that. Just one request, please. Anthony Murphy, all the very best. Nice to talk to you this afternoon.
Thank you.